Hello, my name is Scout Burch, and I'm a sophomore here at Meredith College, and I'm presenting my paper, You Give Love a Bad Name, Making Sense of the Whitewashed Philosophy of Love. Interracial and dating in the United States has had a long and difficult history. Those who enter into these relationships have been forced to face violence, social resistance, and government interference. The bond between two individuals, which is meant to be a private matter, is of public concern and scrutiny from all sides. As the conversation of race, specifically the experience of Black Americans, rises again once again to the forefront of our news cycles and social media feed, we are forced to realize that the inequalities go beyond police brutality and racist political officials. Inequality is present in every aspect of American culture, including dating. The experiences that people of color have when pursuing romantic relationships can be challenging, but they are often overlooked in the discussion of race. Black women and men have both been oversexualized, especially by potential white partners. In the world of dating, they can often be reduced to harmful stereotypes or tokenized by those pursuing them. Like other aspects of life, individuals of color have to overcome extra hurdles to find themselves positioned anywhere near their white counterparts. The discussion of interracial dating is centered around analyzing how oppression and discrimination from public spheres of life, such as government and employment, can seep into interpersonal relationships in the form of microaggressions, unhealthy power dynamics, and privilege. The questions surrounding the analysis of interracial relationships are: what are the unique challenges that these couples face, and how does representation affect their ability to be accepted in their communities? The Supreme Court case Loving v. Virginia, 1967, is often regarded as the landmark case for interracial couples. In a unanimous decision, the all-white, all-male court ruled in favor of the interracial couple's rights to be married and struck down a law that existed in Virginia that prohibited their union. The court argued that the state had no stake in the racial makeup of individuals entering into a marriage and therefore could not legislate against it. After this decision was handed down, only 3% of all marriages were interracial. In 2017, that number had risen to 17%. It must be noted that due to a lack of space, this paper will focus solely on the struggles of heterosexual, cisgender, monogamous couples. The prejudice and social hurdles that interracial couples who also identify as members of the queer community face are vast and unique. By focusing solely on couples who face discrimination and pressure due to only the interracial aspect of their connection to one another, the issue of racism in society and media can better be revealed and explored. Anthropologist Dr. Helen Fisher has focused most of her work on researching the factors that go into how and why humans love. Her book, Why We Love, explores the biological, social, and evolutionary causes of romantic attachment. Using the data collected by Dr. Fisher and her team, as well as depictions of interracial love in media, one can begin to better understand the obstacles and trials that interracial couples are faced with. Fisher utilizes her background in anthropology to establish the theory of love maps, which is a concept that suggests that humans develop their attraction based on what they are exposed to at a young age. The idea of love maps will be used throughout this paper to explain the root of prejudice against interracial couples. Bell Hooks is another author whose theories and writings will be heavily relied upon in this paper. Hooks is best known for her work on the connection between gender and race. Her work, All About Love, provides an argument for how she believes love is formed and how one should treat others in romantic relationships. Furthermore, her contribution to the idea of intersectionality is crucial to understanding how interracial relationships function because it provides the vocabulary to locate where power is within these structures. Another tool that will be utilized to understand the complex nature of interracial dating is the lens of reality television. As it is the case with most forms of media, reality television is a way that creators reflect the value of the society they exist in. To maintain the attention of their audiences, however, they add exaggerated conflict and drama. All of these conflicts and plot points have to be somewhat based in reality to ensure that viewers can imagine the events occurring organically. For this reason, reality television is one way to analyze social dynamics and conflicts because the creators are less inclined to find a solution to the issues presented, but instead exacerbate the problem to their most explosive and revealing ends. As Lee Johnson, writer for website Wise Geeks, states, reality TV is interconnected with society because it gives us the ability to watch and learn from those social mistakes of others, unquote. There is also an element of role modeling that occurs in these shows. People learn how society will react to certain actions and can base their own personal choices off the reactions contestants receive on the show. For instance, if a man on The Bachelor does something romantic that is heavily praised on social media, other men may follow his lead and attempt to emulate his actions in their own romantic pursuits. The dynamic between black and white participants in romantic relationships have been explored through reality dating shows such as Love is Blind and the most recent season of The Bachelor. And the exploitation of these Black individuals is evident. Through the producers' focus on conflict creation instead of resolution, they exasperate and highlight the very real and private struggles that interracial couples face. Furthermore, both of these shows have experienced wide popularity are and are held as the norm for the gender. The formation of romantic bonds is the main focus of these reality dating shows, but the way that individuals develop attachments can vary greatly. As expressed by Bell Hooks in her book All About Love, the definition of love is formed from individual socialization. What she means by this is that there is a type of love that people are exposed to in their childhood, which directly correlates with what they expect out of their romantic relationships. This idea is also explored in Dr. Fisher's Why We Love. In this, she establishes the idea of love maps. She posits the idea that communities and cultures an individual is raised in shape what they look for in their romantic partners. Dr. Fisher asserts that each experience humans have play a part in their development of their love map. The way families interact, what their communities value, what media they are exposed to, and infinite other observations that occur. Love maps are never complete and they are constantly changing and shifting based on new information or interactions and are mostly followed unconsciously. As Dr. Fisher writes, quote, as you walk into a room of potential mating partners, you carry with you an extraordinary sum of infinitesimal, mostly unconscious biological and cultural preferences that can spoil or spark romance. Unquote. Since the United States is still suffering from various forms of unofficial segregation, such as redlining, the cultures and communities that individual groups end up in tend to be that of their own race and ethnicity. So dating outside of the group is altering the love map that they have developed in their youth. It is also deviating from the love maps of their families and friends that grew up in the same environment. This deviation can affect how relationships are perceived and received by those important to the individuals that have entered into the romantic relationship, thus creating strain that would not be present in the same race couples. Dr. Fisher's idea of love maps and Bell Hooks' theory that love preferences emerge from individual socialization can be seen in Love is Blind. Love is Blind is a dating show where individuals meet, fall in love, and get engaged without seeing one another. The idea has the potential to eliminate conscious and unconscious racial bias that would have prevented couples from getting to that stage of their relationship to begin with. One couple that was formed through this experience was interracial. Cameron Hamilton and Lauren Speed, a white man and a black woman, decided to get engaged without ever seeing one another. The conversation of race became necessary as they started to live together and began meeting family and friends. Love is Blind captured these discussions as a reflection of the everyday lives of those in interracial relationships. Lauren expressed her concerns about how her father would feel about her dating a white man in Love is Blind. Lauren's father played a large role in displaying the tension and concern surrounding the deviation from common love map that he envisioned for his daughter. He knows that there is an unequal distribution of power that could be exploited. Lauren's father would rather her be in a relationship where she is inherently more equal. When meeting Cameron, he asked him several questions in regards to his experience dating Black women and being in situations where he is a minority. Oftentimes, the privilege and social status that white individuals, especially men, enjoy over people of color go unnoticed because how ingrained it is into their daily lives and experiences. However, in interracial relationships, these unconscious privileges become more apparent as they are put in display in intimate settings such as meeting families or entering into communities. Bell Hooks claims that love is an action, a choice that someone has to make. This viewpoint gives more responsibility to the person who is loving because emotions are viewed as more uncontrollable than actions. Hooks also expresses that, quote, there can be no love without justice, unquote. While she is applying this to the treatment of children, I believe it can be extended to the unfair and unjust treatment of people of color. There can be no true love between interracial couples while one member enjoys social privileges that directly contribute to the oppression of the other. Each member of the relationship needs to do the work to realize their position they hold in society and how it affects their partner. Cameron in Love is Blind consistently acknowledges how his whiteness has contributed to his position, and has conversations with Lauren about her experiences so that he can better empathize with her point of view and work to fight against the systemic racism that exists in their community. The way love is expected to be expressed is learned through socialization and developed into individuals' love maps. Constructive communication of love and emotion is essential to the maintenance of a healthy relationship. Tufts Medical Center outlines several ways that partners could do this. Quote, words, gestures, facial expressions, touch, unquote. One's love map dictates how one emulates and receives these forms of communication. Many times, the emotions of Black men and women are seen as a negative. Black women are depicted in the media as loud and aggressive when expressing emotion. To combat these harmful stereotypes, they attempt to soften and control their emotions, while white women are given full freedom of their emotional expression. This example of social control and oppression directly affects how Black women are seen in interracial relationships with white men. White men have been raised around white women, their mothers, grandmothers, aunts, and sisters. They have developed love maps that include women that are less socially shamed for voicing their feelings than women of color. But it must be acknowledged that at some level, all women are shamed for being emotional. Because of this, when they enter into a relationship with a Black woman, they struggle to understand the self-conscious nature of the emotional expression. As Bell Hooks writes, quote, since many of us were shamed in childhood, either in our family of origin or in school settings, a learned pattern of going along with the program and not making a fuss is the course of action we most frequently chose as a way of avoiding conflict, unquote. This can cause tension in relationships where Black women are used to social standards enforced on Black men who are also told not to express emotion for fear of being seen as aggressive or violent. White men, however, are given more grace in this area, permitted to get angry and loud without the fear of being seen as a public danger. This disconnect between races regarding self-expression has a possibility of complicating communication between romantic partners. The implicit biases that are ingrained in every individual also affects how romantic partners react to their significant other's display of emotion. White men may react negatively when their Black partner displays any sort of emotion in a way that is unencumbered by the negative standards set on them by society, because white men have bias and expectation that label Black women in their emotional expression as dramatic and violent. This could lead them to dismiss or invalidate the feelings being expressed and thus hurt the trust that is meant to exist in the romantic relationship. Unlike the creators of Love is Blind, on the most recent season of The Bachelor, the producers participated in unproductive behavior. Matt James is the first Black bachelor in the show's almost 20 years of production. He was meant to signal to the audience that the show was, quote, woke, and the producers were progressive and inclusive. Despite the questionable motives of the creators of the show, Matt James had an optimistic outlook on the impact his participation would have, saying in an interview with ABC, quote, his season will further discussions surrounding race and interracial relationships, and his hope is that those types of conversations will become more normalized after millions of viewers tune in each week, unquote. However, this season would turn out to be filled with problematic contestants and controversy. In the finale of the season, Matt James offered his final rose to Rachel Kirkconnell, a white woman who's at the center of controversy when her photo attending a Kappa Alpha antebellum themed ball surfaced. Furthermore, it was uncovered that she engaged with Confederate content on social media and had a history of bullying individuals for pursuing relationships with Black men. Audiences were more than shocked when, despite all of this, Matt picked Rachel over Michelle Young, a Black schoolteacher from Minnesota. As writer for Vulture, Devon Ivey commented, Kirkconnell's history of racism has cast an unpleasant shadow over James' Bachelor season, since it was exposed to the public's eye in mid-February and snowballed into a greater racial reckoning for the franchise in subsequent weeks, unquote. The season that had the potential to show a healthy and productive interracial relationship for the first time in Bachelor history instead put on display a worst-case scenario. By not properly vetting Kirkconnell, the producers set up a situation where James was not able to fulfill his goal of normalizing interracial relationships, but instead showed the audience what could go wrong in them. A reported 6 million people watched the Bachelor season finale and were faced with questionable choices that Matt James made. The love map that individuals have created from birth were not challenged by the demonstration of a healthy, successful interracial relationship, but instead reinforced, especially for people of color. By seeing Matt James, the first bachelor of color, be put in a position only furthers the idea that dating in one's community is the only way to ensure they will end up with somebody respectful and trustworthy. The depiction of interracial couples in the media is essential to expanding the social acceptance and overcoming the challenges that individuals face. But when that representation is negative and unhealthy, audiences are simply led to believe that their assumptions about the unsuccessful nature of interracial relationships are true. While reality TV holds immense social clout and influences stereotypes and perceptions, it is far from a healthy resource to turn to. While Love is Blind attempts to depict a healthy interracial relationship and explore the challenges that Cameron and Lauren face, it still valued drama and suspense over truth and honesty. Similarly, The Bachelor chose to have a Black lead for the first time in almost 20 years to not increase representation, but to retain audience members that were questioning the producer's commitment to racial justice. They used James's race as a plot point and produced a season that was unhelpful in promoting an image of a healthy interracial relationship. Creators of reality dating shows need to realize their power of over social norms and become more intentional in their efforts to represent people of color, as well as a variety of different forms of relationships. They need to ensure that their contributions to the conversations are productive and not a detriment to individuals and communities they are claiming to represent.